Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3. Welcome, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mile High Stadium, Power Field at Mile High Stadium. Darren Smith and Steve Walls. We're here with the pregame cheat sheet. Steve, last time we were here, it was kind of cold. It was bristly. They moved the game from a Sunday to a Saturday back in January.
Yep.
Here it is, a balmy 61 degrees right now. So I want to thank everyone for joining us on our social media platform. Steve, give us your initial thoughts on today's matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos.
Well, first of all, I had a little sweat dripping off my my elbow brow earlier, but it's a great day for football, man. Especially if you can get this kind of weather in December here in Denver. I think that's a bonus. But you know, this Kansas City Chiefs team is coming in expected to win. They're favored by more than a touchdown, and this is just one of those kind of gimme games. But you know, it's still Russell Wilson. This team, I think most fans, just talking to some fans coming in, everyone's just like, oh, well, I hope we give you a good game. You guys are just going to blow us out the water. And I'm like, hey, you guys still have a good defense, a lot to look forward to. So, I mean, it is what it is.
As we have seen in the first game, in the 1 o'clock games, or the 12 o'clock games, we see where a team like the Dallas Cowboys, 17.5-point favorites, trailing the Houston Texans. So, don't want to take any team lightly. This is the NFL, so you have to respect your opponent. The question for Kansas City is whether or not they play down to Denver's record versus playing up to their standards. Kansas City, of course, is coming to this ball game looking to get back to their winning ways after falling last week 27-24 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Patrick Mahomes hurt his foot on the last drive, but he is good to go in this game. Joe Thuney returns for Kansas City. Kadarius Toney is out again still for the Kansas City Chiefs. So with Thuney returning, how are you seeing Kansas City functioning this time around, knowing as you mentioned before, Denver has a pretty good defense?
You got to start. You got to do what has gotten you here thus far. I mean, we know that this Chiefs team, Andy Reid's offense wants to throw the ball first. However, you've been pretty productive with the young gun you have in Isaiah Pacheco, being able to run the ball. So my thing is, if he's able to get those chunk yardage plays, I say you let him spin. You continue to hand the ball out to him and kind of catch people off guard. I was listening earlier to a show that just talked about the top teams in the league, right? Yeah. The only teams that don't have sufficient running game, and it's hard to say this, but the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, of course, Dallas has two proficient running backs that have already, made their mark on the league. However, this Chiefs team, I think if you're able to go and punch other teams in the mouth by running the ball and then come out with your strength in passing the ball, I think it'll fare you a whole lot better, as you go into the end of the season into the playoffs.
Kansas City is number 2 in the AFC conference, sitting behind Buffalo at the moment. Both teams are 9-3. Buffalo, I think, currently is up on the New York Jets at the moment. How does Kansas City refocus? Obviously, if they win today and the Chargers lose tonight's game against Miami, Kansas City wraps up the division for the 7th time in a row. Go for it.
You know what? This is a lot of pressure more on the Chiefs than it is on Denver, because when you get a team that's like, if you beat a team,
Denver's already essentially eliminated.
Yeah, this Denver team has lost to you. You've been the big brother at least since Patrick Mahomes has come into the league, and you get to this point, and it's like, all right, we beat up on them. What else we have to prove? Well, you still need to win out. Right. I think if you want to keep pace with Buffalo, who I think is ahead of the Jets right now, and today in their game going on right now, so you need to make sure that you come in here and do what you're expected to do, and that's win the ball game.
As you mentioned, the Broncos, essentially the little brothers, because Patrick Mahomes has never lost to this Denver Broncos team in his career.
Never lost.
I mean, his first game as a starter was the last game in 2017, where he, made his arrival and made his.
How hard is that to do? Like, never lose to a team?
I mean, it was. Look, we thought it was easy for the most part to win.
We know somebody else has done it. Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Joe Burrow's never lost to Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs. Yeah. So, but look again. Patrick being undefeated in his time here. Obviously, we talked about the weather last time we were here. We were on the field the last time, but the last time we were on the field was also when Patrick got hurt. That was the Super Bowl season.
Yep.
He missed. I think he was doing a 4th down play. He ran him up the middle. Yep. He dislocated his knee. He was out a couple of weeks. Thankfully,
right down there.
Yeah, right down there. Yeah, so something that shockingly, they haven't done. I don't think ever since. But the big pickup in the offseason for the Denver Broncos and in the AFC West attempt to try to overtake Kansas City Chiefs was the acquisition of Russell Wilson, as you mentioned before. Yeah. They got him from the Seattle Seahawks. They also gave him a huge contract extension in the offseason. I think 5 years, 160. I think it was $200-some-odd million with 160 of it guaranteed. So they obviously have not been as good as advertised. The defense has been. It's interesting. If they could have actually just scored more points, they would have the best record in the AFC. I mean, I think their record would be 10-1, if not 11-1, based off of their defense and the fact that they're not able to score enough points.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We know it takes some time. Like, even when we talked about Patrick Mahomes and his new arsenal of receivers, we knew it was going to take him some time, right, to get to these receivers to get acclimated. That was the whole reason that they went down to Texas and did the first portion of their ramp-up period, coming into this season. But we heard the same thing about Russell Wilson coming over from Cincinnati, and he has Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Kendall Hinton. Those guys, we heard about him taking them down to San Diego to be able to kind of get acclimated and get that friendship, not only on the field in the facility, but away from it as well. And it takes some time, but it's just not happening as fast as the Broncos front office and also fans want to see.
I want to ask this question, and we're going to dive into it before we get to our predictions. But how much of it do you think is Russell perhaps falling off from his time in Seattle, and how much of it do you think is coaching with Nathaniel Hackett?
You know what? I got to listen to one of our shows that we did. I think it was the last week, and I went back and listened to it, and we were just talking about the coach. I think it was a Red Hour last week, and we were talking about just the coaching, and I'm really looking at just being the coaching. I mean, you've got a proven player. How does a proven player fall off that fast, that hard? That fast. It just doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I mean, and the reason why I went in that direction is because we saw after the first couple of games where he had bad clock management, where he had to hire somebody from the outside just to help him manage the play clock. I mean, and so I don't know how many other coaches could get away with something like that, without being held accountable. Now, he was not the new owner's pick of the head coach. So I don't know if he makes it past this initial season. And they can't get out of the contract with the Wilson because obviously they didn't expect his play to slip like it did.
And if I'm the owner, I'm gonna go to Russell and say, "Hey, this is me and you talking, right? Like from owner to player, from man to man. Who do you want as your head coach? You are our future." At least for the foreseeable future, next couple of years, until we're able to draft your replacement. And I'm just say, who do you want? Do you think it's going to work? And if not, who do you want to go get? Who should we try to go get and bring in here so that we can win some ball games and just see where it goes from there? And if he says it's not Nathaniel Hackett, then you've got to move on. Sometimes just got to cut ties with what's not working. And I don't see them cutting ties with Russell Wilson because if you remember early on in the season where I think it was a Monday night game and the Broncos needed a touchdown to win, and they kicked the field goal, or I can't remember what they did. They took the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands.
That was the first game of the season.
Yeah, you don't do that. You don't do that. So it's not only is it learning your players, but it's also that camaraderie that we just talked about outside of Mile High Stadium.
Let's look at this game right quick, Steve. We got X factors in the game for you offensively for Kansas City to beat Denver today.
Offensively,
I was perfect last week when I said Mahomes and the Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah, offensively, I think it's going to have to be the running game. We've seen this Denver Broncos offense make teams play bad. We've seen them. I mean, there's been some crazy scores where you 10-9, 16-10. It's they make you play. They make you play a weird game. So you've got to get out early. But then once you manage the game with your running game, I think you've got to show that but you have some confidence in Isaiah Pacheco. I know Andy, and I'm sure you know. And I want to ask you this: of just when we see Andy and when we see, like, for instance, Travis Kelce fumbled last week. Yeah. How much do you believe that Andy makes it a point to go back to Travis Kelce early and often in today's game?
I don't think he does it early. I just think I think they wait till they get out to the goal line. I think the first touchdown will come from Kelce. But to your point, as it relates to the X factor for me on offense, I'm kind of cheap. But to your point about the running game, I'm going with Andy Reid because I want to see whether or not, depending on what type of ugly game that the Broncos try to play, because obviously you got to make it ugly on your part to have a chance to win the game. Yeah. How much, to your point about the running game being the X factor, how much will he be able to stick with the run game before he tries to pull it back and just tell Patrick, go get your stats. So that's my X factor. It's going to be Andy because, to me, that would be the smart thing to do, because that would have been the smart thing to do against Cincinnati last week, and he went against what was the smart thing to do. So I want to see if what he does today. Yeah,
I do agree. But some of it, I believe, comes, to your players. Your players have to campaign. Like when we saw the offensive line, was that 2 games ago? They're like, hey, he's killing. Let's go. We got our rhythm. Let's do it. So
but
I think it has to be something.
But you also on the flip side though, because of the Broncos' record and where they sit, I could also see Andy trying to get Patrick back into that, because Patrick lost to the MVP league last week with that loss to Cincinnati, and he's balling today like he did last week. Yeah. So maybe on the inside of Andy Reid, he might be trying to have Patrick go after 4 or 5 touchdowns a day.
I can see that too. So we see that's Petty Andy. That's Petty Andy.
That's why he's the X factor.
And Petty Patty too.
Yeah. So that's why he's on the defense. Who's your X factor?
This has to be, and I said it was him last week, but this has to be a Chris Jones day. This has to be a Chris Jones day. You have to make sure that you're getting after the quarterback. You have to make sure that Russell Wilson can still run now. He still got some wheels. I saw him in warm-ups where he was still running and trying to throw a little off-balance throw. So I think you have to, Chris Jones, you have to get you a sack today, man. Big max for sacks on Chris. I
was going with Chris Jones and Frank Clark on that one. Just because look, they don't have a run game. Melvin Gordon, of course, is on the team, and they have shown that they cannot score points. So they may put themselves in a lot of 3-and-long situations, and that's when it's time for you to eat. Yeah. So before we get out of Steve, what's your final score? What's your prediction?
Whew, you've got to get to at least 26 points. I'm gonna say the Chiefs have to get to 30. So I'm gonna say Chiefs 31, Broncos 14.
I got Chiefs 30, Broncos 9. I think they kick 3 field goals. It just unless for some reason the Spags defense don't show up today, there's no reason why Russell Wilson should be throwing the ball all over the field. Yeah. That's just my thought process.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we get out of here, because I know the game starts a little bit earlier since it's been flexed.
Yeah.
Who's starting today, as always?
One shout out to my friends over at Dillard's on Rosa. Remember, holidays are here. Go pick out your gift for your loved one, your significant other, or even if you need a style for your game day, go talk to Heather over in the men's department at Zone and Rosa. They also have women's clothing, kids clothing, and also shoes and fragrances as well. Look, you got to go get your loved one some fragrance, some smell good, even if you want to smell good yourself. So my friends over at Dillard's on Rosa, go talk to Heather. She'll get you taken care of.
All right, and as always, I want to thank Todd White and Todd's Clothiers and Taylor Suits for styling me for today's game. And as always, we want to thank Gates Barbecue as well for always sponsoring us, being our sponsor for the pregame cheat sheet, as well as, of course, when we're at home, taking care of the tailgate stuff in the parking lot. Now, join us post-game as we'll interview players. We'll bring you Patrick Mahomes. We'll bring you Reed. We'll bring you our post-game coverage from the field. And then, of course, make sure you join us for the Red Hour tomorrow night at the Soiree Steak and Oyster House, 6:30 to 7:30 on 18th and Vine. And then join us next week in Houston when we bring you the pregame cheat sheet as well. So, for Steve Walls, I'm Darren Smith. We want to thank you so very much. Go Chiefs. We'll see you post-game.
Football fans, you can't spell gate without Gates, and great tailgates start with Gates sauces and seasonings. Named synonymous with mouth-watering tailgates. When you make your list of tailgate essentials, add Gates sauces and seasonings to that list. Spice up your tailgate experience with that unmistakable great taste. Available in 4 tantalizing flavors. Classic, sweet and mild, mild and hot. Find it at your local grocer, and if you don't see it, ask for it. Visit GatesBarbecue.com to purchase any of the great sauces and seasonings. Great tailgates start with Gates.